A quick explanation of the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. We'll keep this story as simple as possible, avoiding some of the nuances, although the Septuagint is actually a fascinating and rather complicated story. In broad strokes, we need to begin with the composition of the Hebrew Bible. At some point between, let's say, the 13th century, the putative date of Moses, and more likely the 8th or 7th or 6th century, the Hebrew Bible begins to be composed. And so we get books like Genesis. In the beginning, God made the heaven and the earth. In Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. That's what it'll look like if you buy yourself a Hebrew Bible. But Hebrew is originally written without vowel pointing. So that's an entirely consonantal text. And the little dots in line 2 are the vowels which were added at a later date to clarify how to vocalize the text, how to pronounce it. That will become an important part of the story in a little bit. So at some point, the Hebrew Bible is begins to be composed in bits, book by book, and of course it gets copied. Scrolls get copied, and then copies are made from those copies. Now, the Hebrew scribes showed a remarkable degree of care in copying the Hebrew text. And from whatever time these first books are written, put here the 10th century just as an arbitrary date, perhaps more likely the 8th or whenever, a long, long time ago, the Hebrew Bible gets composed. Before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the oldest copies we had of the Hebrew text were medieval copies. What was remarkable is that when the scrolls were discovered in 1947, to a great degree, the texts in the scrolls, 1,000 years older than the previously held copies, were often letter for letter the same as what we had in the 12th century texts, the medieval texts. So on the whole, although a text is copied from a text and so on, and we all know that errors can creep in, on the whole, the text of the Hebrew Bible was carried out with great care, and we have something, in most cases, pretty close to what was written a really long time ago, which is a remarkable feat. We're not talking about Hebrew text criticism, so we will keep the story moving forward. Why do we get a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, and when? Well, the next story is Alexander the Great conquering the entire Near East, from Macedonia in the center of your map, eastward through Asia Minor, all the way through Iran, into India, and south through Palestine and Egypt. And the important thing for our story is that that meant Greek became the lingua franca of Alexander's empire. So Jews, even some in Palestine, in Israel, began to use Greek. And in Egypt, where there was a large Jewish population, Jews spoke almost entirely Greek. And that means that while Hebrew Bibles were being copied, in the 3rd century, the Hebrew was translated into Greek.